leave the laptop for a few minutes and then, so that I'll use the same. Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor Badur. I think 4 wonderful talks, and on my behalf as well, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to sort of moderate this session, because I also work on all scientifically study innovation ecosystems. So there's a science to innovation and science to how innovation ecosystems operate. And I think it's a great opportunity for me. So I'll take this opportunity right up front to sort of seek these 4 case studies as something I would like to look further in greater depth. So we'll approach you for that and then hopefully follow up on that. So that's just my personal interest. I thought I'll express it right up front. Lots of interesting things coming here. I think we've seen wonderful ways in which this ecosystem operates and how it operates differently when a pandemic or any other crisis emerges, and how it operates when things are back to normal. And I think many of you alluded to that, saying now that there's no urgency, things are not operating exactly the same way, right? So it would be good to hear. First I'll open the platform for questions from the audience, both here as well as online. So those who are online, if you can just leave your questions on the chat, and those who are here, please raise your hand and we'll take questions.
All our 4 panelists come here on stage.
Yeah, that will be wonderful if we can get the chairs, or
we can do this without having to do that, right? We can stand it.
Yeah, I think yeah, without the chair will be easier, because otherwise it'll take its own sort of. All right, so what I'll do is, okay, I can't do that. I'd love to sort of take the screen there and then capture the moments. Okay, so questions, please.
Maybe you can start with.
Yeah.
Right. So what I would sort of like to ask, and maybe each of you can take your own sort of thought at that, which is, how did you see the ecosystem behave when it was urgent, and how has the experience been different when you want to do similar things or take innovation to the market or just to society when things are normal? So where are the differences?
All right. I guess it had probably come out already from what you heard. When there was an emergency and simple things were important, those simple things, they don't have any more importance, because there's always competition. There's always other kits, and they're cheaper and more, I guess, large scale manufacturing that is possible. So now, if you really want to do innovation, you really have to focus on new science, new engineering, something the IP can protect, and then the industry would take it. There, at that time, the industry was very happy to take it, even if it was just reverse engineering something. So, in that regard, I would say, as mentioned, war settings is what we were operating in, and under those circumstances, a lot of things work, but that's not the way we should probably have to operate now.
Just taking that conversation further. So one part is maybe the cost of indigenization and localization was, or the money that the society was, the effort the society was willing to put for indigenization, localization was higher during the pandemic. The second thing is, of course, I think a lot of us, at least for our effort, we were largely doing things that were very much outside our scope of data. It was completely labor of love. So when normal times return, it becomes harder and harder to justify the time and investment into the labor. So if that was a huge deal, actually, so the red tape. And the third thing I would add is that a lot the level of let's call it help that is available from the ecosystem also was much higher. You could pick up a phone call and there would be somebody willing to help. For very good reasons, it is harder. It's harder today to get something off the shelf that is not available online to just get a supply of it by taking a phone. It's harder to get access to prototypes. There's a little more closeness in the system for that.
I think that this is such a positive story. What happened during pandemic in many ways in terms of validation of science in India, and I think we already had so many good things in the place. That's really how I look at it. I think there was the startup ecosystem that was already in place because of decades of hard work and vision by the institute and at national level by organizations like BILAC, MIT, and so on. And all of us, almost all of us benefited smaller to greater extent from that. We had the CSR initiative from IISc already in place for the last several years, which all of us benefited from to smaller greater extent. We had the national awareness, ICMR, which really rose up to the occasion and really created this whole testing facilities. And it's not easy for 1.3 crore people to have testing facilities around the country. That I think ICMR beautifully orchestrated. And of course, it's easy for us to point faults, but I think these are all something that we must appreciate. These are not easy. And this happened, if you look at it in the context of many other countries, we did so much better than most other countries. We had multiple vaccines already executed. Which other country can boast of that? So I think tremendous, effort by the government. Again, the ecosystem in science really grows up to the occasion because I think the startup system from which Bharat Biotech originated, really at some point 10 years ago, they were a small company seeking support from BILAC, came out with a vaccine which is now all over the world. I mean, what more validation do you want for the policies that happen in the government? That these are points that we somehow are not appreciating. I think that there are a lot of positives, and yes, not to say that we should not improve. Yes, there are a lot of positive changes that have to happen from these experiences, and the list is big. But I will just summarize by saying that in my almost 3-decade-long experience in research and science, what I have learned, and maybe it's too late for me, but maybe Rahul, Sushovan, and Anand are at the right place at the right time. It's really the last mile, which we haven't learned. We are all fantastic scientists. Outstanding science is happening in IISc, no question about it. And everybody knows it, but we're not good at the last one. And towards that, I think these kind of platforms are very important. I think that how do we actually, we are also good at going up to the prototype, but beyond that, and creating a product which is then successful. Let's not complain that industry, multinational companies actually stole the show from us. Let's make sure next time that we do better than them and have better products, and government will support us. Already this tremendous effort by CCAM on indigenization of technologies. I think it is an example. I think they are making that. CCAM has this whole platform where they are trying to promote. And again, it's not perfect right now, but it's there, it's getting there. And I'm sure this is another positive visionary step in helping us move forward with some of the science that can come out of academic institutions into helping the society. I can go on and on, but I think I hope some basic message are conveyed.
Thank you.
For this particular question, a very funny incident comes to me. There was this compressor supplier, which is a basic equipment for medical oxygen generation system. So when you asked about the ecosystem, at that time when I had called him, he said, "Sir, you need something like 90 meter per hour compressor, it will reach you in 3 days." And there was no discussion regarding the PO that this. And last week, again, there was a compressor requirement, but of a different capacity. And then the discussion is they want 50% advance. Now I'm discussing with you that you have to give bank guarantee as per institute policy. So it's very funny that during the pandemic time, people really rose above their materialistic expectations. People really came out in thinking about the broader good of the society. So what I have been noticing since the time where I started to understand this general human behavior, especially when we were growing up, we have seen quite a bit of some of these bomb blasts on Super in Mumbai and those things. people do come. I mean, in our own Indian society, at least I see that everybody inherently has a higher purpose for life beyond materialistic requirements. That is something which I have been really appreciating. That's the take on my side.
Great, so that sort of, that brings it very much closer to the theoretical work that we are looking at, Maths laws. And we're talking about self-actualization, and we're talking about that as well from an innovation perspective. So I'll bring a few specifics now, sort of ask questions on which is, everyone has priorities, right? And priorities vary as time changes. As you said, you come back to the lab and suddenly priorities have changed. So did you see an alignment of priorities during the the pandemic, and suddenly once the pandemic is gone, the alignment of priorities goes off because now everyone has different priorities. And to us, at least when we studied this situation, we realized that what a situation like this does is everyone's other priorities just go off. That's the singular priority that everyone has, and that allows the ecosystem to operate collectively. So any thoughts or comments on that?
Yeah, no, a very pertinent question. This particular question brings the statement by John Nash to my mind. I don't know if I'm putting it correctly. He has put it somewhere in the theory of economics, saying that an individual has to think of collective good as well as his own good in order for the good of the group. I don't know if I have put it exactly like that. So yes, basically what has the way I see it is, whenever there are current situations like this, people do tend to behind their own priorities and come together for a larger good. But yes, definitely once the distress situation evaporates, then it again, maybe if I don't know if it is the right word to put it, the rat race again sets in somewhere. So individual priorities do start taking precedence.
Yeah, but yeah, in my perception, priority is continuing. Let's not think that pandemic is behind us. It's still, there are in many parts of the world, it's still a problem, right? I think despite the fact that vaccinations have become, it's still a problem. And much more important, there are other diseases which are hitting. Let's not forget, and this is where I think media has a tremendous role to play. They're still dealing with other diseases. After COVID-19, we saw that there are other new viruses which came around. And of course, they did not become a pandemic, but they did scare us, and they were a reality. We are just about now, we are really in the middle of another animal pandemic in some ways, because in the country, this has created havoc, and thousands, probably lakhs of cows have suffered because of which is the reason. So I think nothing changes. It's just that we have to open our eyes and realize what's going on. There are so many diseases for which, and Rahul very nicely pointed out, that there are so many infections which solutions are not available. And that's really the mindset we need to follow. We are right now dealing with, of course, skin disease, monkeypox viruses, and efforts are continuing not only in my lab, but many other labs in the country. I think so. Really, I will add one more thing, and which many of us share, that when we go back to the lab, I think the students who are really the workforce and who really made happen what happened, they are equally excited. The young generation actually is so much better prepared, so much more open to it. They didn't care about their safety, and they came and worked in the lab, as all of us actually talked about. So really, I mean, we unleash their power. That's really what we need to empower them. Because really, some of us are sitting there and talking to you, but really the great hearts were younger generation students. How do we find a way to actually make them realize their own full potential? It's something that's going to be very interesting, I think. So yeah, these are the few thoughts that I have.
I can slightly disagree with. I don't think it's a question of Maslow's hierarchy or the question of materialism versus not materialism. I think it's just a reflection of the fact that it is a society. You see, the difference between a developed and developing society, one of the differences is to what extent do you handle the corner case? Everybody can solve the problems of the majority. All countries can do it. The more the developed the society, the more let's call it a smaller problem, they're very critical. It just so happens that in India, there's so many major problems that just a minor problem gets ignored. During COVID, all that happened was all that committee of IIS officers and the government machinery and faculty. All just got cornered into one issue and then progress. It's just that we can manage one or two big problems at a time. During COVID, it was COVID. These days, it's not COVID. If we develop as a society, we might be able to handle 10 problems simultaneously, and then maybe all the time we can get over it.
So I think everybody has said what I have learned from this lesson. As Sylvan put it, we are struggling. The basic Indian man and woman is struggling with the livelihood. Right? They are struggling with corruption. They're struggling with paperwork and so on and so forth. There's only so much they can do, and then they came together because there was one problem, one focus. Now, so what do I have to say that to make this, at least in the positive way, that's what is trying to do. So one thing is we have to make an effort to make sure we identify our problems and prioritize them well. And we have to do it as scientists. I feel we have to do it for two sets of people. One is the policymakers, because they are the ones who are taking all these big decisions happening at the government scale. Because from top down, we are very good at following them when it comes top down. But we also, I agree, we also have to convince the young generation that they should not be thinking only about the degree and the paper and the publications and measure their impact in terms of what societal impact they are able to make. And there is, people will give them recognition. You will have the kind of satisfaction by doing that, and that is worth it. So I think if we can do these to convince these two people by prioritizing this, I think we will do better as a society, in spite of all the limitations we have on struggling.
Right. So I'll ask one last question.
There are some.
Okay, there are
Online questions.
okay, there are online questions. Great. So right.
Just wanted to just go on, because I was just moving what just Rahul said, because this is exactly the two problem at our center we work on. Of course, then it would be very nice for us also to be carry on with this conversation to how to convince policymakers to prioritize, because that's where we come from, that evidence-driven policy making. The second is again how we can make the young generation to realize that it's not just about publications or impact factor or this kind of measure. There are other measures of impact of your research. So this would be from our center's perspective also to reach out to all of you to get more evidence onto it, to how to take it forward, this to do the policy makers.
20 steps of my mind are absolutely for you, and I am deeply passionate about this, and I'm pretty sure all of these people are. So we are happy to give you whatever we think, and then you have to assimilate and then maybe actually come up with.
Yeah, sure. That's what we got. Thank you.
Can I just?
Yeah.
So I'll just continue on this and with what we understood from its amazing stories that we heard, and what I felt was that there was many non-science stuff where you had to engage and put a lot of your time and energy into, and obviously which took your time off from the main science that you have been doing. And so that is what, I was wondering what kind of support system would enable you to, make things faster. If a support system could be there in the institute and such, if any such system already exists in other system, which we could, look forward to having, communicating with the regulators, communicating with the CSR funding, you have to look for funding, you have to go to the policymakers, to the regulators to understand the guidelines, so many things that you have to navigate. What kind of support system would be, helpful?
Let me take a stab at it. Again, this is my opinion on the subject. There's a well-known TRL gap in it, which is that we do think that the low TRL, and then there's manufacturing at the high technology readiness level, and there is a gap in it. And that is because let's call it the development, industrial research ecosystem in India is pretty much non-existent. I mean, I don't want to take very specific names, but Tata, one of the largest conglomerates in India, did not even have a role of a CPO until 2014. The basic way Indian economics works is it is capital arbitrage. The reason an industrialist has an industry is because they have the money and they can set up that industry. The reason the industrialist is not because they have a certain technology that nobody can compete with. So that we are competing with capital, we are not really competing with technology. And in that, there is no reason to develop it. So that's the problem. What can be done about it? To some extent, we already are. The very fact we are reaching out, we are talking about startups, we are talking about testing facilities and infrastructure. To some extent, the industry is also reaching out and doing some amount of this. What will help, I think, is that India should really strongly look at the SBIR and the STPR model that exists in the US. Basically, to summarize, if any society, any government organization, NSF, NASA, anybody has to dedicate 2% of their money to just support technological problems that are given to startups. The end, 2% of the money just goes to startups. And that creates this ecosystem, that reserve that they can draw on anytime they want to develop the technology. And it doesn't have to be successful, and most of them fail, and the government doesn't care. 2% just always. That will let them help.
Yeah, I think, I do agree. It's some ways that we spoke about CSR, startup ecosystem, government support. I think they're all doing the right thing. It just needs to be accelerated. It just really needs to be more fast forward and robust so that we are continuously, for example, let's not wait for the next big problem. Let's empower these people who are trying to do something. That's one message that I'd like to see. That's the support. The second one I would like to see that my personal experience was that I would connect with policymakers. And that's where I think your role comes. That can you find a way by which you can have a direct connection? That's really what somehow we need to. And I think the center is such a nice idea. So this is going to help to be able to talk to people at the right time and have a continuous dialogue so that have that initial roadblocks in reaching. That would be very helpful. And again, I'll just end by saying that this really lets your center could also possibly help us find ways to deal with the regulation.
Yeah, the way I see it, one very important lacuna that needs to be addressed pertains to bridging the gap between need and availability. See, many times it so happens that we have a very wonderful technology and we are in need of some funds. And somewhere else there's an industrialist who wants a technology and he has funds. But then we never meet. So it's like a boy and girl who never meet, who are destined to marry. So this is something which we have been really facing. I mean, the other day some big steel industrialists were there in our lab and said, okay, wow, this is what you are doing and this is what we need. How come we don't know each other? So that is where some initiative can be taken where information dissemination can take place. Then I think the broader challenge of startups struggling and a broader aspect of how industrialization or as Professor Sushobhan said, how raising the TRL level itself can be addressed in a more appropriate way. So for example, our own technology today is at TRL 7.8. Now, how do I take it to TRL 9, which essentially is an industrial scope? Now, as a scientist, that's where that's where we reach asymptotic levels. Beyond that, it is mostly driven by markets, mostly driven by policies, mostly driven by safety rules, regulations, so on and so forth. So that is something which I am very poor on. So that is where some support can be made available from industries. That's it for myself.
Right, we have a question there.
Yeah, so my question is like all of you talked about it during pandemic, whatever diagnostic tools or whatever vaccines and testing that we have developed. It's not something new that is already there, that existed, and that came from the years of basic research. So initially, when COVID struck out, we have witnessed a huge spurt of funding from government of India and the private investors. And since the bad day are over, like, we have been witnessing like the funding is waning as for the interest. So like, I want to ask like how government should formulate a policy that should be reflection of farsightedness, that we can be better prepared for the future such incidents like that. And
Yeah, I think, in some ways, I just want to say this, this one, yeah, I think it's not as if government is not making efforts. As I already said, sometimes we are too critical about it. See, it's not an easy to pass on the way. Oh, the system is not working. I don't think that's the case. Government is doing tremendous. The whole start ecosystem that government is creating. It's one of the best and biggest in the world. There is the support, financial support, by that, very fantastic mechanism. All of its support is going. Some of us have benefited, many more people will benefit. Let's not look at it that way. I think now the question is, let's look at what can we do. We need to be more proactive and fight for those funds. I think that's what we can definitely, but I think there is some mechanism available which can then be improved. That I agree, but I think there is already a wonderful platform for us to be. You can, for example, today approach BIRAC and ask for funds for an idea that you have. It's possible. You will get it within 2 months.
The BIRAC model can be implemented in DST. That would be BIRAC is actually a great model. I'm surprised why more Indian government agencies not taking it up. But in general, I agree. There's no point in bashing it. It's actually an unsolved problem the world over. People have been trying to recreate Silicon Valley in many other valleys, and Silicon Valley is Silicon Valley. It's a rather complex question of what makes finances, venture capitalists, startups, ideas, and universities sort of blend in this magical fashion that innovation comes out. It's not real. It has been created only in a few places in the world, and it has been tried by companies and by countries with far more money than we have, and have still failed in creating. So to ask, I don't know what the answer is. Maybe you guys can find the answer, but it's an unsolved problem. With that, having said that, there are certain models that we can adopt. I think BIRAC is a good example. SPR is a good example. CPR is a good example. I actually am not in favor for the mission mode funding. Okay, that's a personal opinion, and I'll tell you why. The problem is defining the mission. There is good evidence out there that the way the American model was they're like, let's be wide, let us be broad, and let us do basic science. And the hope is you do good work, and when the need arises, you will be able to dip into that resolve and pull out innovations whenever you want. Maybe that is the way to do it. Maybe the other way to do is no India is too poor, and you just figure out some verticals to invest in and put all your energy into those verticals and make something happen, and then use resources from there to feed other verticals. It's an honest debate. I don't know what the right answer is. I personally am more of a breadth.
That model worked for Japan, the second one, or Korea. So there are examples of both. Yeah, sorry, it was just an organic.
No, it works for smaller countries.
Both of you, whoever speaks, takes a mic, or the audience can hear.
I'm not so sure it works on the large country because we just too heterogeneous. When any vertical you pick, you are probably depriving them. And again, that's a personal opinion.
Yeah, I think that's basically the point. It's between what is urgent and what is important, and we have to find the right balance. For that, the people who are making the decisions have to be smart and fast. Right? It's just it happens to every individual. There are many fires burning, and you have to exercise which is important for you, and you pick the ones which are urgent and rather than the ones which are important all the time. Right? So finding that balance, prioritizing, having a broader, bigger vision is what is needed in almost all the problems that are there, and otherwise we won't be able to do that.
So, my next question is like nowadays in most of the science policy we have been witnessing that let's say there is a problem, and for infectious disease research. So people are investing a lot more, government investing a lot more money in like biology research. But I think if we start to work in the environment and the human interface, that in the era of climate change and all, there is a higher chance of transition of this virus and infectious disease from that area forest to the humans. So, and the policies that are being formulated are solely based on this is a problem, the infectious disease is a problem, and let's try to solve that. They are not even multifaceted enough to accumulate other factors into consideration. So, what's your take on that?
So since I work on infectious disease, I'll say something. I think the realization is that people appreciate. I know there is a meeting coming up that is being organized by the PSA's office on One Health. Right? The recognition that you can't deal only with the disease when it is in the humans. You have to deal with the whole spectrum of problems that give rise to this. So it is happening, and the Western world also have been thought about it in a big way. They are just starting to think about it. So we are not very far behind it. And it will happen that yes, we will be only able to do so much because of the limited resources, limited critical mass that is there. But the thought is there, and hopefully we'll build on it and go forward. That's what I can tell you.
No, I think that already anybody's satisfaction, but there are enough good signs. I think now we need to, the ball is in our court. Let's put it that way. If I were a student, I would feel responsible. Actually, like, look, what can I do? Because I'm the future of the country. As a scientist, I would ask, I challenge myself. That look, what kind of programs I should. And that's how I was. I'm very, very happy to hear from you. That's understand what I. But so really, that's what it is. There is enough support available. Let's now try to make use of it cleverly. That's really what it is. Because I think, as was alluded to earlier, the problems are so many that policymakers will find it hard. It's diarrhea, simple diarrhea. It's a huge problem. So, like that, there are probably hundreds of basics which need to be addressed. Where do we start? And of course, after all, a developing nation, we are a low resource country. So, it's limited to what we can do in terms of testing. So, I think there is that balance we have to try. In the end, we have chosen professions, we have chosen research on. So now responsibility. I think if you look at that, that's a healthy attitude. That's really
I would like to add a small point to the first question. This is again on the lighter side. When you say, how do we be prepared? My answer would be take your Hollywood and Bollywood more seriously. Because we had this movie pandemic way before this pandemic hit. And exactly like that. Now, since that time, I'm wondering, okay, aliens may come someday. So how prepared we could be? The essence of this statement is that we may not really be able to predict what's going to happen, but then we can at least use mass media to make people be prepared as to what they should do if something like this happens, what are the things that they need not do. And these need not actually come as guidelines, they can still be promoted through Hollywood and Bollywood. So basically, if we can use our entertainment industry also as a tool to make ourselves prepared, that's one way of it. Of course, this can be taken on a lighter side.
We have another 5-10 minutes. What I'll do is there are 2 questions which are online. I think this is probably not working. Yeah. So we have 2 questions online. I'll start with the second one, which is more related. First one I'll explain, but we still want to get an answer, even though it's not very related. So the second one is essentially, I'll just read it out as it is. So I'll work on identifying the challenges of scientific institutions to take up the knowledge creation for socio-technical transitions in case of medical technologies. Please reflect on some specific challenges in terms of funding, infrastructure, creation of specialized manpower, and of course, knowledge sharing.
I think all of them have challenges. I have been harping about it, not because of personal experiences, but I know of people who have come before me and have tried to set up technology innovations in the healthcare industry, and have realized that they of course come from training in US or Europe, and then they realize that all the things that they took for granted, they don't exist. Some things, right? Some things that Shushavan was mentioning, the availability of manufacturing, supply chain, those things do not exist. Can we solve it in a single day? I don't think so. Can we get skilled manpower in a single day? I don't think so. That's not going to happen. We have to, again, as I said, prioritize and then invest in those and then try to build that so that we get to that stage. So all of them are a problem. Absolutely. There's nothing I can say that will stop this.
I mean, the general point is it's not the medicine or medical equipment or medical technology alone is challenging. India has the largest challenge, and all those challenges just medical. I'll just very briefly talk about the specific problem of testing that I face. Unlike FDA, ICMR actually does, or I think it's DPCA, they actually don't do any testing of their own. They're essentially a repository of documents. You basically go and submit all these documents, and these are all the testing I've done, this, and they will take it and they will store it. The problem with that is the following. There is no certificate I can get from government of India that says my ventilator works. So every time I go to a hospital and say, here is a ventilator, I have designed it, please use it, I have to start from zero. I have to basically convince their ethics committee every single time for every single hospital. That's not scalable way of doing it. If there is some FDA level type testing, where the government of India says, look, we have tested it in our own lab and it works, there is a certificate that just makes it much easier to go into a hospital and sell something.
Okay, thank you very much, first of all, for reaching out. Such a wonderful effort you have made to offer all this help. But I'll be very brief in addition to points that's already raised. I would say that reach out to, for example, and in this case, very specifically to Indian Institute of Science, there are mechanisms available to help identify some, for example, a startup or a group where some meaningful work is beginning and empower them. Be specific. Because we can always take general initiatives and that take time to achieve. But be specific in the efforts that you want to make it encouraging and try and empower that particular effort. Be it whatever it could be an individual startup, tech or whatever it is. I want to just end by saying that once people believe in us, why isn't there a single unicorn out of IISc startups? Please help us create one. Once you create first, I think the whole world will be after us. And this is what I think we need to do. Unicorn is, of course, I'm exaggerating it, but successful startup. Tell me in biology, I can tell you about biology. We won't have examples of big successes. And that's really what you want to help us do. This is really my request and opinion.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and my point on this is, especially from personal experience, what I would like to see is some sort of information repository wherein the ground level challenges associated with medicine, medical aspects can be brought to light to the broader scientific community. Today, that's not exactly happening. There are many challenges which are beyond certain diseases which are showing up, which people are kind of just accepting and moving along. For example, once I was in some college giving a lecture, and then somebody said that there is a major problem of how do you transport sputum of TB patients. It's very difficult to transfer. It spills over once the sputum is taken out from the bottles. There are no mechanisms of disposing it. And today, most of the times, what's happening is some of those tubes are collected and then they are discarded outside. I mean, so. But it's not a big challenge, I mean, let us at institute level or at IITs or so on and so forth, we can definitely come up with some solution for a disposable sputum transport mechanism. Now, we don't know that there are problems like that. So the basic approach one can do is we can actually start making a repository where problems can be hosted. Now, to just draw a parallel, the other day, one organization met me and then they are trying to sell information for lakhs of rupees, which is anyway available as an open source information. All that they have done is they have consolidated it in one particular form. Now, this is something which can actually be a startup kind of an idea where information can be consolidated. So information is something which can be focused. That's my idea.
Right. It appears also, that you don't have enough work thinking at systems level, right? Where you're saying that you're doing your part and you don't care what the results are. And that's there certainly needs the need to have more systems thinking and so on. So I'll come back to the other question which is online. The reason I said why it's not really related, because directed towards what is the role that industries can play in shaping the policy, given that different stakeholders bring different inputs. And given that you are all academics, I thought it's a little indirect, but I'll still want your take.
Okay, so the experiences that I had during the pandemic, this is the first time I was talking to them on a big basis, is that it's not as if they are not interested in innovation. They would love to pick up innovative things because that gives them an advantage, because otherwise they're always playing catch up to the Western world. They don't have the resources, or they don't have the investments that they would really want to make into this, because they always have been told that it's all about getting their products out and not doing the long game. Right? So industry needs to change that. They need to think, at least fine. Yes, I understand that they can't invest and do only long game. They need to, however, start thinking about investing a small cap of theirs back into themselves and saying, okay, we will build something. We already have the expertise, already have the pipelines, and let's see if we can try one small thing at a time. And again, they will fail many times over, but at least they can absorb it, unlike a startup. And if they are able to do it, I think they will have successes, and then those they can build on. So my recommendations are, I think my suggestions are that they should try to invest on local technology, building, innovating in-house, and then going from there. Of course, they can acquire startups, but that's something that's need to.
Nothing to add to that. I mean, nothing more to add. It's exactly that they need to invest, and I think that will just naturally happen as soon as competition forces them to be innovative. Right now, unfortunately, in India, the competition is low. You basically have a very dominant player markets. We are not as indicative. Again, I think it's a matter of time, but those who are innovative will definitely come.
Yeah, I think what I would like to is industry needs to recognize that it's a developing story, the startup ecosystem, innovation. These are words we use. Innovation is a big word. We use it very common, but these are the developing story for our country. So when you approach a startup, when you approach an innovator, don't expect perfection right at the beginning. If that attitude changes, we really need to, sort of work on it a little bit for the next 10 years, 20 years. Then the successful stories. Obviously, the innovators are still learning the ropes as they're out from the today. So when the industry looks for, really need to be a little bit of, I think, do it with a sense of helping create examples. That would be tremendous. I think, because unless that happens, we will remain stuck at the nascent level. There are sufficient ingredients available now to go to the next step, and I think industry has to reach out to make them into successful stories. If that happens, that will be delightful. Thank you.
Yeah. Insofar as the industry is concerned, one position I would like to take is the industry should start believing more in academic institutions in our country. That is something which is critically lacking. I mean, from my own personal experience, I can say that an industry very happily goes abroad, sees some technology in a glass door, signs the MOU, buys it and comes here. When the same thing is done here in our country, it is investigated to the last molecule. We can also do it. You should have more faith in the technology that is being developed in the country. That is take number one. And take number two is, please don't expect academia to deliver you the technology at PRL level 9. Technology readiness level 9 cannot be delivered by academia. Technology readiness level 7 is what we can do. 7 to 9 is your responsibility. So these are the two major points for the industry.
Great points, and we'll have to close it here. I think we could have gone for hours, but wonderful inputs. And we have a very interesting session in the second half of the go for lunch. Thank you all who are here, and thanks everyone who's online. Please join us back again, or just keep yourself online. Go for your lunch, and we'll be back at 2 o'clock. Right, at 2 o'clock we'll start the next part. All right, thank you. We'll take a